a real joy to spend this evening with you, and not with my wife and kids. No. And thank you especially to, not only for the invitation, but for Pastor Weeks' presentation. I think one of the beauties of this kind of gathering is how many yeses we find ourselves able to say. At the risk of sounding cheap, there was a beautiful bit of Catholic ecclesiology, all 8 minutes of it. And I mean that not in a condescending way, but in the spirit of that yes or affirmation. I think I could find a paragraph in that catechism right there that affirms just about everything, if not everything, that you had to say. And that alone is a gift. I want to begin by thinking a little bit about this initial question, the unity to which God calls His church. What is it? By not assuming that we know what the term unity itself means. There are, of course, many kinds of unity. Numerical unity, mathematical oneness, unity in the natural world, physics, chemistry, the hard sciences more broadly. Ways of speaking of unity, of course, in the social world. Unity of family, of friendship, national unity, global unity, and so on. The unity we're talking about, I think, isn't separate from these other kinds of unity, but is distinct from them. And in order to name this distinctiveness, I'd like to extend Pastor Weeks' sort of insight and basic commitments here into two images. Just two images, two scriptural images. That I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with, but I don't know quite how to talk about this question or this word unity without invoking them. And the first is this, okay? This unity, this oneness, is something spousal, nuptial, okay? The scriptural image, the Pauline image of the church as bride. What does this mean? First and foremost, in a word, this oneness, this unity is not numerical or social purely, but it's a unity of love, right? Personal, relational. And a witness, first and foremost, to self-gift. Okay, so we can think, in addition to the many scriptural passages that Pastor Weeks offered us, especially of Galatians, Paul's letter to the Galatians, who invokes the Son of God who loved us and gave himself for us. Love that is ordered to self-gift, and self-gift that comes to us as love. In this catechism, in the opening sort of paragraphs on the nature of the church, we read, "The church is born primarily of Christ's total self-giving for our salvation. And there is no church apart from that self-gift." Okay. So we find then in this spousal vision, nuptial image, a witness to a total gift of self. So again, I think of my own marriage, my own wife, her self-gift, her yes, so many years ago now. There's no possible way to earn that, is there? That gift of a lifetime. That single yes that still rings through all these years together now. Through new life, through death, and everything in between. There's no way, of course, truly to self-create or generate or control that yes. But once it's given, it creates a communion, a friendship, a family, a whole new life made and sustained by that gift. And that gift, that self-gift, creates a unity already promised, already present, and yet also ever to be lived into. So it is both a gift, both present and a call. This personal dimension then means it is received as an article of faith. And I think it's worth pointing out in the Creed, in the Nicene Creed, the church is an article of faith. Okay? It's not a matter of sort of empirical evidence only or visible union only, but something that is believed in, confessed. It's something revealed, the mystery of the church, including its unity. Something like someone telling you, "I love you," or "I'm giving myself to you," or saying, "I do." That's something that can't be sort of generated through your own reason, right? Through your own sort of empirical deduction, but can only be said to you and revealed to you, and so given to you. Right? So too the church. Its unity is given as a gift, not something earned or self-generated, not a work that can finally be manipulated or violated, because it is born first and forever from an encounter with Christ's own total self-gift on the cross. Okay, so that's the first image of oneness, the nuptial or the spousal, the church's bride. And now the second. This unity is something embodied. Okay, so another Pauline image for you. The church is the body of Christ. And if these seem somewhat mundane, I guess the little teaser I want to give to you is that the unity of these two images, the spousal and the embodied, form the bedrock of every other Catholic teaching on the church. So feel free to challenge me on that later. So this unity is something not only personal, relational, nuptial, spousal, but something embodied. Right? In a phrase, love is not love that is not incarnate. Returns us to the question of oneness because we can ask ourselves, how many bodies does Christ have? One. How many brides does Christ have? One. This mystical body of Christ, as it's known in the longer tradition, forms an identity so profound that Augustine, in the 5th century, called it simply, in Latin, the totus Christus, the whole Christ, head and body. A head and body that make, in the end, one Christ. And so again, this unity is not simply notional or intellectual or creedal in the first instance, but one of lived, embodied fidelity, to such a degree that when Paul meets the risen Christ, he hears the Lord say, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? And in fact, the whole rest of Paul's story is living into his own story of Paul the persecutor becomes the story of Paul the persecuted, and so his own life gets caught up into the mystery of this me. And so the church, this communion, is no less embodied. One you are no less willing to attach your me to, however imperfect it may be. Because he, this Christ, gave his me, himself, to this communion, to you and I first. And it's here perhaps we can begin at least to speak to some of the other questions raised. Can the church contain a diversity of gifts, observances, liturgical practices? Right? Does unity mean uniformity? And I think it's worth pointing out as we shift to our next section, eventually, on the question of division, that the Catholic Church is itself this. Maybe this is not often as well known in non-Catholic circles, but the Catholic Church itself represents a diversity of observance, gifts, and liturgical practices, and a unity that does not mean uniformity. What it means in the end, and I'll wrap up here, is a learning to say yes to a larger totality. Okay? And that is what this word Catholic really means. Okay? And learning to be one in the vision of the Catholic Church is to take this spousal mystery, this very embodied mystery, as it has appeared and grown in all of the centuries since in every corner of the globe, and learning to say the fullest yes you can to that unity. And from there, I think we can take up the question of division next. Thank you.